You better get that weight, yo, dude. I was just gonna say, if you don't get that, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm gonna give you the perfect weightlifting workout and split, and we're gonna start right now. Okay, so we are here with Evan Garrett, and so what he's going to do is he's going to get into this freaking sweet workout. Now, when we're looking at a split for weightlifting, I like to think through the week, okay? And that weekly split, if we're training 6 days a week, so I'm gonna go into, if you don't train 6 days a week, what you can pull out. We're gonna start with baseline competition movements, okay? So when I think through planning, I go specific umbrellas, baseline competition, okay? Day 2, strength variation, okay? Day 3, technical variation. Day 4, competitive variation. Day 5, athlete day. Day 6, max competitive, okay? And so when I'm laying that out, typically if you're somebody who, let's say you only train 4 days a week, the first thing that I would do would be that I would take out either strength variation or competitive variation, okay? So that would be the first aspect. And that might also be after I've removed that athlete day. Okay, so when I'm thinking through exercises, I like to base exercise specifics off of all of these different factors, off of these different umbrellas. And so I want to point out right now, Evan is doing his warm-up. He's going through his PVC pipe walks. He's going to get into some split squat, thoracic rotations, and then he's going to get into some duck walks. So that's going to be the key portion behind our warm-up. Evan's also snatched 122. He weighs a little bit below 70 kilos. He's clean and jerked 150 kilos. So he's genuinely one of the best guys in the entire country. Now, going back to my umbrella discussion, not umbrellas, but actually exercise umbrellas. When we're looking at baseline competition, okay, what I want to do here, that's going to be like something that we do on a Sunday. So typically that's just going to be snatch, clean and jerk, squat, okay? And we're going to do easier percentages. We're just trying to imprint good technique. When we get into strength variation, okay, a strength variation might be a movement that we do that you can get a really high load on. Okay, so if we're looking, split, rotate to the lead leg, rotate to the lead leg. So if we're looking at like a 1-box snatch or a 2-box snatch or a 1-box clean, something like that. These are movements that are gonna be a little bit easier, but you're gonna be able to do a lot of weight. A technical variation day would have exercises like a muscle snatch, a chun snatch, push presses, stuff like that. Okay, now on that technical variation day, we will push some heavy load on a squat. Typically that would be a front squat day. Okay, then when we get into that 4th day, now we're looking at a competitive variation. And what I like to do with that would be, I would pull off the floor, let's say, and do a pause below the knee snatch. Okay, I could do a low hang snatch. That's gonna be, low hang snatch is one of those gray areas, but typically something like a pause below the knee, a low hang snatch, I would put on there as well. And then the athlete days where we're gonna do the jumps. And then finally the week will finish with the days that if we're in a high volume phase, we're gonna do triples, okay? And we're gonna try and max out a triple, okay? And then we might do some crazy drop sets. If we're in like a mid-volume day, we might do 4 doubles at the same weight and then 4 singles ramping up. Okay, so that would be how that day would be if we're in more volume. If we're getting closer to a comp, we might do like 10 singles, okay, and just ramp up to a max, okay? Or do 10 singles at the same weight over and over again, and we base that off of a percentage of their max, base that off of the actual number that we might use for the final warm-up or the second to last warm-up. So that's how we set up that entire weekly split. And we have a resource you guys can download down below that actually lays all of that stuff out. It lays out a full week, so you can click on the link down below in the description. And this is actually what we do inside of our strength training app, Peak Strength. And now we're gonna get into this workout. If you guys wanna follow along inside Peak Strength. If you need some training, head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store. But now we're gonna get into Evan's doing those PVCs. He's warmed up, he's ready to roll. We're gonna get into that first big exercise so that he stops missing his snatches forward and getting pancake pipe cleans. Okay, so Evan's got a pretty good power clean and power snatch. He's actually power cleaned 143. But if we're looking at this day, this is a technical variation day. He's good at power snatches. I'm gonna ask him a question. We actually have this inside of our app, inside Peak Strength. Dude, this is why I freaking love this app. It's so fun. Evan, do you wanna do a power snatch, a 1-box power snatch, or a pause below the knee power snatch?
I'll do a 1-box.
A 1-box power snatch. So we'll replace that to help with his ego. And then the first set, we'll do a warm up. First set, we'll do it like 65 kilos, nice and easy, okay, for a double. All right, we gotta set that up and you guys will see us smash some weights. Evan will say, I don't like being compared to Jake. And then what does he do? He goes and jumps and produces a massive amount of force on the 2 stair jumps that we have, which honestly, I would say is like maybe 0.001% of the population of the entire world can do. But you know, weightlifting exercises don't make you explosive. You can't get more explosive from weightlifting exercises. Anyway, the issue here that I'm having with Evan is that he doesn't like to compare himself to Jake. And I think that's why his snatch is 25 kilos below what Jake's. I don't want to be compared to Jake, so I'm going to snatch a lot less than Jake did. But make sure that your clean jerk's just better than Jake's, please, for the love of God, because his clean jerk was trash. No offense, Jake. Your clean was good, Jake. Jake's clean was good. Evan's going to hit a single here, and the thing that we're working on is he's got to have good speed, and the big thing with the one box, okay, is I want him to start when he would be pulling from the floor. That's if the bar's here at the starting position, I want his knees at that same position. So we're gonna hit 80. We're gonna take that rest period. Okay, I'm gonna inform and educate peak strength. Okay, so now we're gonna get to 85K. And you got a minute 30. Okay, so we're gonna put on 85. So he'll get that minute 30. I'm probably gonna push him to go faster because he's got a good, well, you do have a good power snatch. Like it's not.
Yeah, it's all right.
It's a little shaky sometimes, but.
It's pretty shaky.
His power clean, this is one thing I wanted to bring up actually, was like, so Evan's 19, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Evan's 19, weighs 70 kilos, which is 154 pounds, and he just power cleaned 143, which is 315. So we're talking about an athlete that weighs 150 pounds basically, cleaning 315, and yet we still have, power clean. And we still have strength coaches that are out there like, that's like a barrier number. Like when kids are 22, 23 years old weighing 250, it's like, yo, if you're in the collegiate ranks and you're a football player or a thrower, or even, I would even argue some heavier wrestlers, like, dude, you should be power cleaning that. The thing that sucks is that those strength coaches that can't get their guys to power clean enough actually give the strength coaches that use weightlifting movements a bad name, because then they're so bad at getting people to get stronger that now we have other strength coaches that don't like to use weightlifting movements talk trash because the other athletes that are being trained by weightlifting coaches that aren't good coaches have weaker athletes. I don't know if is that clear? Was that clear to the audience? I know that was like this huge roundabout thing, but then I'm seeing these dudes on Instagram talk shit on weightlifting, and I feel like I need to go on a crusade. Like I get so triggered like a little snowflake little bitch.
That's you right now.
God, sometimes I'm like, this is what my life is. Getting mad about people who dislike snatching. Okay, we got 89 or 90. What do you want?
90.
Okay, so we'll go 90. Evan just asked me what day would he do a 2-box power clean. So the way I look at a 2-box power clean is that it's sort of like the speed movement, right? So you can do this if you have somebody who struggles with hip contact, a younger kid, they struggle with good acceleration off the hip. And then as lifters get more advanced, it's a movement that you can push and you don't get beat up. So that would be a technical variation movement, or I would put it on a strength variation day if I really want to push a snatch variation, like a 1-box snatch, something like that, or a high hang. I would then do a 2-box power clean after that, because then it's more so about speed, the total load. Even if you're doing like a 2-box power clean, his power clean from the floor is 143, as I mentioned, but typically you would see he could possibly hit like a 142 box, maybe even higher, but it won't beat him up. He's not gonna feel fatigued the next day. And that's the way that I like to think through the umbrellas of exercises, is that it's all about using variations in an effective manner that mitigates too much, it decreases the risk of too much stress on them while they still have enough speed work and enough intensity work within the week, so that by Friday, we can hit decent numbers. We do train like a big Friday. Like a lot of people are like, well, how do you max out every Friday? First of all, the sport is about lifting heavy. You can go ahead, Evan. But we won't be lifting like true max out every Friday. It'll be based off of reps and in that session, and then also some of the strength movements we might just focus on the pushing the load. Ooh, good. Okay, so let's go, huh?
It's kind of ass, actually.
That was okay. Let's go 92. We'll go 92, and then we're gonna do one triple as a drop set, but 92 on the next lift, and then we're gonna do a drop set.
What did you put that in peak strength as? Very hard?
Yeah, so the other thing I'll say here is that one of my favorite like tactics that I like to use is I really like to use pushing a weight to a certain point, and then we might do like stability work at that weight, meaning like, okay, Evan goes to 90 and 92, right? And we might hit in a session, we might hit 3, 4, 5 singles there, and then we do a drop. Okay, so then we do a drop at like 75 to 80% of that, and we'll hit repeat reps there on shorter rest to really try to develop stable technique. I think that that's a effective way to have good movement patterns. I also wanted to point out, inside peak strength, Haley is the model that we're using on the one box snatch, and Haley's best one box snatch was just around 90 kilos at 49 as a 49K lifter. She two box snatched 92 kilos. So 92 kilos is actually what Evan has on the bar, ironically. I just thought about that after.
And the 49 kilo woman did this on my dome. Well, she full snatched it though.
Yeah, true.
Just take anything I can get.
Okay. Okay, so now I want to go, if I'm looking in peak strength right now, I'm going to adjust this. I'm going to put you down to, let's just go down to 85 for triple. But then you have Haley doing this, boom, one box power snatch. And honestly, I think as a model, Haley probably had some of the smoothest technique, I would say, ever.
Until you guys film me.
Oh, yeah. And even here, what's cool is you can see, okay, 1 and 2 box variations, power snatch versus full snatch. Oh, there's Jake who snatched 145. Snatch technique overview, beginner snatch progressions, common snatch mistakes. So you can sort of go through here and just live on the app for a little while and like actually enjoy the instruction as well as the actual technical. I'd say you're a little wide in the catch there. That's a little better. That's a classic Evan. So it's like one thing there, if that's something that you typically do, it's as the knees come under, Evan tends to stay here a little bit, and then he throws his head back too much, and then the bar stays forward on his catch, so then he has to run it down. And the big technical aspect, so one thing, I want to go to the next movement, which I just replaced the exercise for you because you asked this question, when can we do 2 box powers? And I went in and I changed the actual technical variation because you asked that question, so I'm appeasing you.
Nice.
Yeah, I just want to give you a little back rub. Now, back to the technique is that if, no, $2.
Oh.
Is that if you tend to miss something forward, the big technical thought that we like to have, and we've got a lot of videos around the technical execution, we've got a lot of videos around the periodization of how we set up weightlifting, is that I want you to stay flat-footed as long as possible, and I want you to think about the knees clear, so the knees come back here, right? So the bar stays tight, and then we sit through, and we want to reciprocate the knees under to keep the bar tight. And really the whole goal is that the bar stays over the mid part of your foot the whole way. That's why the knees have to move that way, and then we can make contact. Ideally, we would make contact with a flat foot. Okay, so we make contact with that flat foot. And sometimes if our chest stays forward too long or butt rises too fast, we tend to have to make up for it by getting the chest too far back behind the bar, and then we end up missing it forward a little bit. Now, with Evan, that is a pretty common error. The issue though is that there's also like some idiosyncrasies that every athlete will have with their technique. They're not gonna always execute perfectly based off the technical model. They're gonna have like their style of the model. And so you've gotta just recognize that that might be an actual movement that he does regularly, but we've got to like decrease the error as much as possible so that he can live as close to the technical model as we can be. And we've also done breakdowns of someone like Quo with technique. From a clean perspective, Ilian had a phenomenal clean technique. And then you know, our lifter Ryan, I think Haley also was probably one of the best technical lifters as far as the clean was concerned. And then when we're thinking about technique, your technique has to be repeatable. It has to be the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And that's how you get stronger. And that's where I think a lot of, start warming up here. Go 2 powers, 1 jerk, pause.
We're doing jerks?
Split. Yeah,
we're doing jerks.
Pause in the split.
Dude, this is gonna be a long video.
The big thing that people miss with weightlifting in sports performance, and by this time, a lot of you guys probably have stopped watching the video because you're anti-weightlifting for sports performance. But I think the big thing is that we neglect as strength coaches to recognize how effective it is to have a non-weightlifter do these movements. So if we have a swimmer doing these movements, Caleb Dressel can snatch 100 kilos. That's why he's got one of the best starts ever. But also, that helps him become a more technical swimmer. And so if at an early age we get our athletes in here lifting with weightlifting movements, they understand that technique is imperative to their process and their growth. Put on 90. And then when they execute things with technique, they develop what we call as technical aggression. Okay, and when you have technical aggression, that's when you can execute things at high speed that require a lot of precision, like running a route in football, like hitting a specific cut, like throwing in shot or discus or whatever the event might be, like swimming as I mentioned, like wrestling. And now we can get our athletes to not only be extremely explosive and fast and strong, but we can also get them to have that technical mindset, so then when they're in their actual sport, that's the priority. Okay, and then over time, they can just execute things at high speed without having to think through it because they're so bought into the technical execution. And so that's the big factor here. Evan, 2 and 1. Pause in the split. And this is the other thing, is that inside peak strength, we do a lot of variations where we'll hit a pause at different positions. We'll hit a pause in the split position. And this is how we end up improving the technical execution, because they have better feeling that way. Okay, put on 110. I think one of the coolest parts about Peak Strength as a weightlifting app is that it's our model, right? Meaning our periodization model is built in, and no one else has this model. No one else follows specific days that are very precise for competitive movements. And then when no one else has technical variations. No one else has strength variations. No one else has any of the setup as far as the umbrella of exercises are concerned. The other factor that we do is we have very unique, I think there's very specific ways that you can get your nervous system to respond to technique. So hitting waves, hitting on the minute at certain times in the like 12 to 16 week time frame. All of those things are in peak strength, whereas a lot of the weightlifting apps that are out there, they're just cookie cutter, like snatch, clean, or a lot of them don't even, this is another thing, dude. We snatch and clean jerk in the same day. And I think that that's a factor that I've always felt was like, why is that not standard? And so if we do a muscle snatch and then we do a power clean push press, we could do that on the same day and get work done. And then in comp, we feel better, right? We feel stronger. We're able to hit those six attempts as well as we possibly can. I think that's the whole goal. Hit this for a 2 and 1. Is that you've got to be stable with your movement patterns so that in a competitive setting, you can just put weight on the bar and execute. And I think that's the big factor that we have. It's built in, like you're basically being coached by me inside peak strength. Minus the swear words and breakdown attacks. Those are only specially delivered on site to lifters who don't post enough stories. That front foot could move a little more. Now, that was a gross recovery. A little narrow on that. So when you start to feel pretty good, right? Like this is 2 box power clean, and you go 2 box or 2 box power clean, pause split, right? So I'm gonna decrease that. Now it's 2 and 1. So if you feel like maybe your shoulders are a little banged up, you can decrease the splits. Now I'm gonna update this. Evan's gonna hit this for a single. And this is the other cool thing is you can adjust the reps based off how you're feeling on that day and educate peak strength to do that as well to understand how you're moving. And I think that's another big factor is that we have that in there. So I'm gonna let Evan hit this for a single and then we're probably gonna go up in weight as well. And we'll do one more set there. So Evan, you can go 20, but one thing there is like, this is a real common error. People who do, and this is, if you do push presses, right, and you slide back, okay, typically what happens is at the bottom of the dip, you come forward a hair, and then the weight is here, so now you have to throw your head back a little. So when you throw the head back, the center of mass moves back here, and then you slide back, and that's part of how you're like getting the drive out of the bottom of the dip to get the bar overhead. Okay, so Evan tends to do that very, very slightly. It's hard to see, but that's also what happens at the bottom of his dip. He comes forward just very, very slightly, and then his front foot barely moves. And so because of that, the dip is the reason why his front foot barely moves. Then the issue becomes his body, his nervous system learns that barely move the front foot, barely move the front foot. The issue arises is that when he actually executes a really good dip and drive, his front foot is used to not moving. And so you're like playing pong constantly, like back and forth. Okay, now we gotta fix that front foot, but then that could change his dip. So it's like, those are the unique things, and that a lot of strength coaches will say like, well, why would I want to worry about that? Okay, you don't have to worry about it, but if you actually recognize that that is a good part of training people, and that's an intricate detail around strength and conditioning that you can then you can alleviate other problems in the competitive realm. I think that that's the thing there with Evan is like, I just wanted to bring that up as a lesson, but also for him, he's got to be aware to still drive long and move your front foot out. I'll move that front foot forward, dog. Now, I mentioned earlier on the technical variation they set up for front squat is that days that we do like a speed power like this, where it's minimal range of motion, it's all impulse based, right? It's like you're decreasing the range of motion. The load is similar or the same. So because you have less time to pull, the force has to be higher on the same weight. As if 120 was from the floor, your force has to be higher when it's on the 2 box. So this is an impulse-based day, okay? But when we do that, now we're gonna do front squats, so we will push front squats slightly. Now, Evan's got a lift later today, so we won't go too heavy. But as a means of analyzing what we do inside Peak Strength, what we do with our programming, that's the way we think through it, is that when you're executing movements that tend to be a little bit easier technique-wise or speed-wise, we can still make strength gains in those sessions and not have a negative impact on the following day of training. That's how we try to develop everything. So we'll do a pause front squat, double. It's gonna warm up. I'm gonna increase this because I know he's strong. So we're gonna start at 120. That's gonna be the first set. Pause front squat. Now, I want you guys to pay attention to pause front squats are, I would argue, probably the best lift to increase pulling strength. And the reason being is you have to have tension in the bottom. Okay, I would say pause front squats, then pause back squats, then box squats. That would be the way I would go through that. The reason I like that is it helps with pulling strength, but also how well they receive the bar, because they're feeling that position that they have to have good tension through the trunk the whole time. Okay, so the pause front squat, I freaking love. And also, younger kids benefit a lot from pause front squats because it improves mobility. It improves their ability to hold their posture, and it makes them less of a bitch. 2, Evan. So start at 20. Now, one thing too, think about when we're front squatting is that we want to front squat with our stance where we catch a clean, okay? So we don't want to front squat here. We want to front squat, like if I would catch a clean, that's where I want my front squat to be. Okay, so we got to set that as a standard that every time you go front squat, this is the position you have to be in. And ideally, every time that you set your front squat, this is where your hands are going to be when you're executing the catch and the clean. No, this is a morning session for Evan, so you don't get gear in the morning. Okay, you can get the belt, but you don't get the knee sleeves. Yeah. I actually think that when you have athletes that do train twice a day, so we'll have sometimes like 8 to 9 sessions a week. If you're like trying to become world class, I just got a notification that the rest time is up on Peak Strength. I don't know if you can see that because my dome's in the way. So Evan, you need to go do 2. I do think if you're somebody who wants to train multiple sessions, that the morning session should be 0 gear, okay? Not steroids, but, well, also 0 steroids, but 0 gear, meaning no knee sleeves, no belt, or anything like that. Because that's just gonna help feel a little better tension without that, and it's less reliance on it. Good. Okay, notice too with his breath. Okay, that's another big factor. Come here, push into your belt if you're using a belt. Get your gut out and fill everything up and hold that through the squat until you get to the top. Put on 30. So that's like a cue there, is to think don't breathe out as you come up. And especially on the front squat. If you breathe out on the front squat, that could black you out because it could sit a little bit deeper on the artery, because you're losing the air. Accessories here, it's gonna be fun. So he's gonna get a good flush out of his quads, and then Hurry up, go front squat, stop crying. So that's gonna be, and this will be his other accessory here. Just don't tell him. So he's gonna finish his front squats, he's got 2 more. And if he doesn't, this is like my favorite thing. Also, if he doesn't hit these 2 front squats, we're gonna add 2 more sets. That's like my new favorite thing. Oh, you don't want a front squat? Okay, well, if you don't hit this weight, then we're gonna do 2 to 3 more sets of front squats. Up. Now there I think he could have paused like slightly longer. He sort of collapsed and then came up. Or at least be tense, boom, a little bit quicker, because that could lead to good improvements. So we got our lower body mobility day here, okay? So he can execute the lower body mobility before or post workout. And I want to share, so we got all this stuff here going through that mobility workout. And then the other thing I wanted to point out, this is something new. Okay, so we just created this. Okay, you can add a workout. And what's cool is you can come in here and say, okay, I want to add a workout for, let's just say this, start the workout. And you can literally come in and train. You can now use this, that if you want to train twice a day, you can actually set that up as adding a workout. So in like athletic fitness and the other portions of peak strength, you can add like finishers, and in the peak strength weightlifting portion, you can actually add 2 sessions. So that's the freaking cool part. That's the stuff that like no one else is using effective, proven periodization. Okay, no one else who has a strength training app, no one else that has a weightlifting app has coached a world medalist and is putting their information out there for training. The other cool factor though is just setting it up and being able to take advantage of that if you're trying to be more elite. So that's really neat. That's a really neat thing. Come on, stay tight and drive the elbows up. Come on. You better get that weight, yo, dude. I was just gonna say, if you don't get that, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm gonna be so mad if you don't do that. Yo, that's the bullshit he does when he like is getting killed by weights and he just knows he's failing. Strip this, now we're gonna go hit the accessories. Okay, so he's about to start his accessories. I like to do a lot of, I guess you could call it unilateral, but in this case, like a side-to-side accessories. So he's gonna do alternating V-ups with a rotation. Yeah, just rotate a little bit to that knee. Now go the other way. Yep. Because we always hit a split to one side, we'll end up, if we don't train both sides well, we'll end up rotating too much in the split or too much in the snatch catch. So he's gonna do 12 each side. Evan has been bad at V-ups in the past, so he's probably feeling this right now, ironically. And then after this, we're gonna do a little finisher for his knees, for his quads, and then he's got about 3 hours until his next training session. So we gotta make sure that he recovers as well as possible. And the next movement, I think, can lead into good recovery because it'll get good blood flow into the quads, into the knees. Dude, are you serious right now? Like, this is crazy. And like, that's the cool thing too inside peak strength is that if you're in another workout, you could get a finisher for abs. You get a finisher for bis and tris. So that's like, and just get slaughtered. So that's absolutely fantastic. You guys can click the link down below in the description. You can get into the weightlifting path. You can become an absolute freak of nature, just like our guy Evan here, who's now doing backward sled pulls, working on building that quad strength, that knee health. And remember, he does have another session, so we gotta make sure that he can recover from this morning's session as well as possible. If you guys want more content, you want more videos around periodization with weightlifting, click on this card right here, because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace. You're a bad person if you don't snatch over 120 today. Peace.